David Bishop, welcome back. It's great to see you.
Good to see you again, Mark.
When did I last see you?
Just about a week ago when we were at the NGA show in Vegas, right?
Yeah. It was rare that we actually have both of us, in the same room.
Actually, a physical connection in person.
Okay, I wouldn't go that far, but yes.
Well, I'm not saying a love connection, Mark.
We were in
person, on site, in the same physical
in
area,
the proximity of each other. Yes.
Yeah. Yes, whatever legalese you'd like to use to clear the air.
Fantastic. We are here this week, today, to talk about February 2023's eGrocery Insights Report. And as we usually do, we talk about the numbers, but there's also some additional topics that I want to get your thoughts on, pick your brain, especially since we were both at the National Grocers Association event at the same time.
Sure.
But first of all, let's get to the nitty gritty in terms of the numbers for February. What are we continuing to see in terms of the impact of inflation? Let me ask you that question first.
Well, just the top line, just to hit it and then get to your question. Year over year, the month of February came in with sales slightly up, almost 2%, just under 2% in 2023 to 8.8 billion. When we look at the three segments, again, pick up, delivery, and ship to home, and try to answer your question about the effects of inflation, what we can see right now is delivery is facing the most headwinds. It's down almost 9% year over year for the month. Pickup is up 5%. But again, put that 5% in context to the rate of inflation, and that would say at best it's probably even, if not softer. And ship to home has bounced. It had a nice bounce, especially versus last month, where we did report a fairly dramatic drop. This month versus a year ago, it's up over 15%.
That's interesting. Is that because consistently we've been seeing it drop month after month. Do you think there's some seasonality here?
Well, if there is, we don't look at it that way. I think, one hypothesis we would have is as households have pulled back on using delivery, for instance, there may be items that those households wanted still to get, but maybe didn't want to go to the store for. So ship to home could be an option for that. And again, if it's spearfishing, one or two items that are a personal favorite, ship to home could fit the, fill that need. Again, that's just one hypothesis. Explaining that.
Okay, and and the old adage, time will tell. We'll see what happens in the subsequent months with ship to home. So one of the other salient numbers that popped out at me was the number of households that bought online in February. I think the number is now 72 million. So two questions jumped in my head. Is the audience for online generally expanding? And secondly, what are we seeing in terms of repeat purchase behavior among those 72 million households?
Yeah. So to the first part of your question, we are seeing a sequential expansion of that customer base, not only year over year, but really on a 3-year perspective. So if we were looking at that monthly active user base from 2021 through 2023, we would see each sequential year that total number has grown. Now, we need to keep in mind that 72 roughly million households are shopping across 3 different segments. Mm-hmm. No segment has anything north of 40 million, right? One of the things we can look at, and we illustrated in the report, as you know, Mark, using a Venn diagram that essentially illustrates which methods households use and where it overlaps is dual usage or multi-use. And what we've seen is actually an increase in reliance on only one of the three methods. Right now, we're probably around 72% of all the monthly active users are only using one method, whether that be pickup, delivery, or ship to home. So while it's true we've expanded the base each year since 2021, what we're seeing is kind of a consolidation or a concentration of where online is supporting, various households. And, I know you talked about repeat. I think maybe you were looking at order frequency.
Okay.
What we have seen is that order frequency, overall is now at its lowest level since we started the pandemic. It's still above pre-COVID levels, but it's now under 2.5 orders per month, which again is the lowest since we started the pandemic in March of 2020. And I would add why I would say this next part is, generally speaking, we have an inverse relationship between monthly active users and order frequency. As one goes up, the other one goes down. So as monthly active users come on, they tend to be less familiar or less, accustomed to shopping this way. Therefore, their reliance on this mode of shopping is lower. As they become more familiar, more accustomed to it, and appreciate the value it brings, correspondingly, we see their order frequency go up. So it's not unusual that we see order frequency decline when households increase.
And I appreciate you calling that out. Let me ask you about AOV. What's the relationship with AOV frequency and the number of households?
Yeah, so generally speaking, and this would be in a non-inflationary environment, generally speaking, what we see is as more households come online, so our monthly active user base expands, AOV contracts for a similar reason as order frequency. That is, those people who are coming on who are less frequent users tend to buy fewer items online. But as they become more familiar and accustomed to that way of shopping, then more items find their way into the basket, or they start laddering up into higher retail items. We can't tell based on this work which of the two it is, but generally speaking, that would also operate in somewhat of an inverse relationship. However, what's different today, as you know, Mark, since the last few years is, we are in an inflationary environment. So that component adds just another layer of complexity. And at this point, whether we're looking at pickup or delivery for the month of February, they're between 4 and 6% higher than a year ago. Well, inflation for grocery products is still significantly higher than that. So what it would show is there's still some pressure on the households from a spending standpoint, because simply the growth of the AOV that we're seeing in the online baskets isn't running kind of in parallel with the rate of overall inflation. Got it.
And let me throw this at you, and it's a criticism that you may have heard. To what extent can these monthly numbers be more reflective of what we would call the Walmart effect on eGrocery sales?
Yeah. And I think the first thing is we do this each month because that's what retailers are looking for. We recognize that there could be month-to-month or month-over-month fluctuations that are hard to explain. Some of it could be through sampling. Some of it could be just the environment that we're living in. So we tend to look at a little bit of a longer period, could be 3 months running, to look at a longer term trend to see how it is shifting. But to your point, when we look at the business and we talk about the top line and then break it down, and as you know, Mark, we do look at the different retail formats. So grocery is looked at separately from mass. And even within mass, we do look at Walmart, Target, and then the other discounters individually. We just don't report that out, at least right now in the monthly report. But what we can see in those numbers, whether we're looking at February or 3 months rolling, is that that it's not really mass that's on fire, it's Walmart that's on fire. And fire is a good thing here for Walmart, that is. And that is, Walmart has seen another, month over month surge in their monthly active users base. This one is north of 20% again, while grocery at the same time is down nearly 10%. So that's that flight to value. And again, keep in mind, this is monthly active users shopping online. We're not looking at feet in the door shopping in the store. Their AOVs are trending in a very similar way as grocery, which is relatively positive if you think about the fact that now there are a lot of new customers at Walmart. Mass's AOVs are up maybe 6%, groceries up 10%. But again, we would expect grocery to be up more than mass simply because we've kind of thinned the herd, and those who are left tend to be more frequent users. So it's still impressive, or even that much more impressive, when you realize that the monthly active user base has grown over 20% for grocery for mass, as opposed to declining almost 10% for grocery.
Thanks, David. I appreciate you providing some context and some extra thoughts around that criticism. But I do want to share with the audience that you have. And I like it. I've slightly tweaked the format for the reporting and providing more insights and implications. Can you just touch on that briefly?
Obviously, our aim is to provide objective truth to the audience, and the audience is primarily regional grocers, or that is the target audience for the report. Our objective truth is really grounded in kind of voice of the customer. We look at the customer in terms of who they are, where they shop, why they shop, and how they shop. And when we do that, we are very mindful of saying, what does this information, what do these trends, what do these insights mean? Because they can mean different things to different people. The results from Walmart's perspective may mean one thing. From that of a regional grocer, it may be something completely different. So we've tended to refrain from making implications, kind of saying, what does this mean? Or suggesting recommendations to consider in terms of what to do, simply because we have a fairly broad audience, or a broader audience, I should say, than just that of regional grocers, right? We have investment firms involved. We have conventional grocers or regional grocers subscribing. We have technology companies, manufacturers. So we are very mindful of that. But with that being said, people are time starved and looking for, kind of snippets and sound bites. So we've kind of bended our practices slightly and tried to provide what we probably characterize as more insight and perspective, as opposed to implications and recommendations, just so that those busy retailers who are scanning through the monthly report or reading the press release can get a little more context for what this may mean for their business. I mean, ultimately, if they really want to know what this means for the business, we promote and encourage retailers to reach out to us so we can engage in a one-on-one conversation where we would feel much more comfortable stepping into the realm of implications and recommendations.
Yep. And to that point, I think that's an offer that's put out there to anyone who receives the report, any retailer that receives the report. And I would highly encourage the retail audience to take you up on that opportunity. So kudos. I like the new format. I think it's going to be really useful, especially when you're wanting to scan for some of the salient takeaways. On to another set of topics, and I know we touched on this at the beginning of the show. I just wanted to get your feedback on some of your takeaways, your comments, on what you saw at NGA last week.
Well, first of all, it was a great show to go to, and it's great to be again back in person and to see, the type of foot traffic and energy at the show. I think that was great, and I think part of it was being able to talk to industry peers and to compare stories and get their thoughts in a more casual, way. Obviously. A lot of technology out there, as you saw, Mark.
I was surprised. I was surprised. It's really shifted its focus to being at least 50% or more technology based.
So a lot of shiny objects.
Agreed. And I think you could see that. And for those who don't know yet, the trade show floor was actually split into two: the more traditional food suppliers in one section, and then the technology companies in another.
Yeah, and we saw the likes of some of the large tech disruptors with their various exhibitor booths, and most noteworthy, we saw the Amazon presence on the floor selling their retail support software services to conventional grocers. So that was interesting to see. And of course, we saw a hybrid of one of the third parties who acquired a kind of a smaller e-commerce platform, also showcasing that, or some of the other ones that were acquired by Register or other equipment firms. So like I said, it was really kind of an interesting show from a variety of vantage points.
So let's explain why we were both there at the same time. The session that you moderated, and we were happy to sponsor as Mercatus. I thought it was a really strong session. A lot of great linkages between the strategy of engaging in an online omni-channel experience and how to apply it at a retailer level. Do you want to share any comments on what you took away from that session?
Yeah, I thought Kevin and Armando did a wonderful job from the retailer standpoint, given the fact that Kevin Stafford from KVAT operating Food City really came at the business from a different perspective than Armando Martinez from La Bonita Markets. One, we had a general market versus a Hispanic market concept on the stage. Two, it really illustrated the difference in how people were making decisions or moves today based in part on how long they've been online. Food City's been online since I think they said it was 2015. And La Bonita came online with 2019. And it was great to hear how they both went online and the reasons they chose for it. And La Bonita, I think, really probably represents the majority of retailers' rationale, which reflected that their provider made it easy for them to get online, quick and easy, I would say. And I think that is an important consideration, but it is also in some ways a trade-off that you make relative to what you're able to do in terms of customizing the platform, which is where Kevin and Food City were maybe a little different, because they essentially developed a customized ordering platform, working with a local digital agency. But as Kevin pointed, technology has advanced considerably since when they launched in 2015. Yeah. So had they launched more recently, they very likely would have gone the route of La Bonita or something similar in that. So I thought, all in all, that anchored also with Sylvain's perspective, especially relative to onboarding a retailer who was launching their first party after being on a third party marketplace, or now migrating a retailer from one first party platform to another, which, as you know, is no small feat. So It was really a great session to have both Sylvain and Armando and Kevin share their thoughts on the topic.
Yeah, and I agree, and it was interesting. It came at a time when in the press, the trade press, that is, we're all doubling down on Heinen's decision to delist from Instacart, and you could see also the impact on from Instacart's side to really double down on their press activity and try to deflect some of that attention. What because it's not our advice to remove yourself from the marketplace. In fact, like you, we recommend grocery retailers be on as many channels as they can to benefit from the traffic acquisition that's generated through those marketplace activities. Primarily, though, take steps to migrate those marketplace customers to your own first party. That's generally our position. What are your thoughts on that news story? Because it seems to have sort of kicked up a bit of a firestorm.
Yeah, I kind of first of all thematically kind of put it in this shiny object syndrome, which is be careful what you look at. I mean, it may blind you to the realities that you should be focused on. I think the announcement was not a surprise to me or us. We've been aware, or to many people, we've been aware of a lot of retailers looking to improve their ability to connect with their own customers so they can control the experience and manage costs more effectively. What Heinen has done is a kind of a natural evolution for a retailer who's ready for the next step. Not all retailers are, right? I mean, volume has to be a consideration, internal capabilities, a culture that's committed to growing for the future. Those are all kind of prerequisites for, determining whether you would even be a candidate for this. I mean, internally. What remains to be seen, I have not checked, just to be clear, is while the media focused on, Heinen's is delisting from Instacart, the real takeaway is they've moved off of Instacart's enterprise software to another party's first-party ordering platform. As to whether they've completely removed themselves from the Instacart third-party marketplace is another question. And I think, Kevin from Food City talked about this as they've been onboarding their second delivery provider. And the way he put it, I think makes a lot of sense, especially to retailers, which is, they look at, let's say, Instacart and DoorDash as two different customer pools. There may be some overlap, but more likely there's less overlap than some would think. And if you really want to be where the customer is, which is what the retailer's orientation is, the logic of saying this is the reason why we want to be on multiple marketplaces makes sense because they can't buy from you if you're not there. It's no different than a physical mall. If it's a busy mall, you want a storefront or a little cart or something just so you have the opportunity to make the sale. So I think that makes sense. Obviously, losing any customer is not a positive, no matter how they leave you. But Instacart's doing quite well relative to trying to figure out where and how they evolve going forward. It's just they're evolving their business model in a way that moves them further and further away from their core competency that started this whole parade, which was grocery delivery. What regional grocers really need to understand is, well, how does this affect service levels, commission rates, cost to serve going forward as Instacart now tries to adjust their own internal strategies for these realities? And we know Heinen's is not the only one. They're not the first. They're not the last. They may be the one who's gotten the most attention. And while it's probably interesting to chit-chat about, if I were a retailer, I would be thinking, okay, how does this potentially impact my business, right? I mean, Heinen's is our preferred grocery store. I live in the Chicagoland market. We do shop online with Heinen's. Before they made this switch, they really weren't available for pickup. It was only delivery through Instacart. Now, I believe they also have the pickup service that's being extended. They're now fulfilling those orders with their own customers. But, Heinen's is a unique bird. I mean, they're a store that doesn't have self-checkouts. And I have no complaints about that. And I'm a self-checkout user. But that's because they have plenty of staff at the front end. And they move you through and they're very courteous, right? So
it's definitely a retailer that has a strong brand, and they have faith in that their brand's going to sustain whatever the implications of this decision may be.
Yeah, so they're obviously weighing the risk and the reward and understanding, okay, if the long-term game is this is where it's going, then we want to own that relationship. We want to own that connection. We want to own the transaction. And then the only way we can really take cost out of the system is to disintermediate. I mean, that's the way the grocery generally operates. So those are just some kind of observations from my standpoint relative to that development.
Appreciate that. One last topic before we call it a show. Retail media. It seemed retail media was everywhere at NGA. Whether you were a coupon provider, a flyer provider, you're developing your own retail media network or providing those services to small retailers and independents, even Instacart offering their successful retail media technology to retailers. It seems to though. It's interesting though. How do you think retailers are perceiving this, and do they see it as we have talked about, as an opportunity to help offset the cost to serve, or are they just seeing it as a ability to tap into a retail money pool that the national CPGs are offering?
Yeah, so I think there's two ways you can look at it, kind of schools of thought. Let's start with the merchandising school of thought, which is similar to, make money on the buy, right? Mm-hmm. Is that, retail media today, it has the opportunity to provide an ancillary revenue stream to help offset the higher operating costs associated with fulfilling online orders, full stop, right? We provide a service. We need to find a way to cover the cost for that service. And there's a variety of ways you can do it, but one way that is becoming increasingly clear and attractive is to create a new revenue stream through retail media. We've seen it with Kroger and Target and Walmart, and big money for them. And so any of those dollars at a high margin, whether it's 70, 80%, whatever you believe the right operating or gross margins are for retail media, absolutely can help offset that investment if the company views it holistically like that. And obviously, retail media is not catered to nor targeting only online. It's an omni-channel opportunity that can be embedded in the mobile app, help facilitate shopping even while in store. The marketer, though, would maybe look first at the ability to build a bigger basket. And again, we heard Kevin from Food City really talk about the importance of basket building, and where retail media could have its impact also felt is through better targeting of those recommendations in terms of promotional deals or buy with, add to the basket type of suggestions, could result in kind of an organic building of the basket more effectively than what we currently have. So, if that's the case, now we have incremental gross profit dollars that we didn't capture before that could also be used to help rationalize or offset the incremental costs that we have, if you want to look at it that way, or take them together and the combined effect of improving baskets and generating incremental GP from the incremental items in the basket to additional revenue streams to help offset that investment. In either case, both of those will help retailers in their path to improve the profitability. It's not to say those are the only ways, because we know there are other pricing moves that retailers could do that could help improve that process as well. But at the current moment, these two both seem to be getting a lot of traction, primarily because there's currently a general reluctance to move on bifurcating pricing online versus in store. So, again, that's my read on it from a merchant and marketer's perspective.
No, fantastic perspective. Appreciate that, David. I think we're coming up. This has been our longest show yet, so I'm conscious of time. Let's connect next month when I won't have my glasses. So
that's right.
That's right.
And next month will be when we get our first glimpse of what happens when the SNAP extended benefits disappeared, which happened at the beginning of March. So it will be interesting to see if and how that plays into our analysis next month.
Fantastic. Lots to look forward to. In the meantime, everyone, stay safe, and we look forward to seeing you this time next month. Bye, David.
Thank you, Mark.